Welcome to the Digital Transformation Podcast, a podcast that connects you with the most influential players in this field who are shaping up the world around us digitally. We help you gain an edge on your competition, whether you're a small business owner, CEO, or just someone who wants to stay informed on all things digital. This is your go-to source. With your host, Michelle Cimino, the CEO of the Lasting Dynamics Group.
Welcome to this new episode of our Digital Transformation Podcast. Today we welcome Mr. Alex Jimenez, that is the Managing Principal at EPAM System. And we just acquired this news from your latest tweet that you were awarded as a top 50 influencer to follow in the FinTech world. Welcome, Mr. Jimenez.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, great to have you here. My first question, opening question for all our guests at the Digital Transformation Podcast is, what is your definition of digital transformation?
Well, a lot of people focus on the word digital, which I think is the mistake that a lot of organizations make. So digital equal technology, everybody focuses on the technology and everybody wants to figure out what technology needs to be applied to get that transformation, but it's backwards, right? Transformation is really the key word in that phrase. And it's all about changing the business model. And yes, technology allows you to change the business model, but you can't transform in a vacuum. And you can't just say, okay, I want to put a dash of blockchain and a little bit of AI and some mobile technologies, and now I've transformed. It's all about thinking about the new business model, and specifically, what is it about the technologies that have impacted our industries in the past few years that have changed the behavior from consumers? So it's really more all about the consumer, right? So, 12 years ago, when most of us got our first smartphone, we started changing our relationship with technology, and we started changing how we did things, right? So it didn't used to be that you did everything on your phone, right? It didn't used to be that you would Google everything right away on your phone. But now we do that, and it's part of what we do and what more and more people do every day. So that activity and that behavior is changing how everything is done. Whether it is banking or shopping or watching movies, all that stuff has happened because of devices that have changed our behavior. So digital transformation is all about changing your business model to address the changes in consumer behavior. And in the banking world, it's not just the consumer, but the people. It's the consumers, is the employees, is your partners, is your business customers, because they're made up of people. So you got to change your whole business model to address the new way that people do business now, or at least the way that they prefer to do business or want to do business. A little bit of all over the place there on the definition, but that to me is what digital transformation is.
It's really interesting. You are mentioning that digital transformation is about the people. That is definitely a process that we need to embrace. And this is quite of a question that is coming now to my mind. What is the duration of this process, in your opinion? And from a government perspective, from a corporate perspective, what is, in your opinion, the lifetime of the digital transformation process in these environments?
It's a forever process, right? So I used to work at a bank that thought that digital transformation was a 4-year project. And at the end of 4 years, everybody raised their hands and everybody got really excited and we're done. No, that was just the very beginning, right? That was just redoing the website, rolling out a mobile app, blah, blah, blah. It was very much the beginning of that journey. As we see our behavior changes, with new devices, with new capabilities that are out there. And so, a few years ago, most of us didn't run around with smartwatches, right? So there's some activities that I do on my watch that I don't do on my mobile device. And in the future, the mobile device may actually go away and there might be new functionality, and therefore our behavior would change again. And it is all about keeping up with our consumer behavior and people behavior. So it doesn't have an end. So for those organizations that think digital transformation is a project, they're wrong, because it's a process, it's a journey. It's not anything that's new. our business models have changed throughout the years. We just haven't really realized that that is something that we need to do. And now the acceleration of the changes is so much more that you really need to be very mindful about the change. So, in the banking world, back in the 1970s, we had ATMs. So we rolled out ATMs as a project, and that worked okay because we didn't have another technology right behind it. In the current world, technologies are not just one after the other. There's a whole bunch of technologies happening all at once, and all kinds of behavioral changes that people are making, and therefore you need to keep going. So digital transformation or business transformation or model transformation, forget maybe even using the word digital, because it may have nothing to do with digital, right? Is something that we need to do forever. And it's not going to get easier. It's going to get more complicated, and it's going to go on as long as we continue to change. And I don't see that ever changing, right? We're not going to get to the point where everybody says, "Hey, all the technologies have been invented. Now we can all take a rest," right? That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the evolution itself, as far as
Exactly.
I can understand.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
great. And in your opinion, how companies can use the digital transformation as a tool, as a framework to create new opportunities? What is your suggestion?
I kind of alluded to that already. It's understanding that we have never been in a space where nothing changed. It's just that things change in smaller increments, but now, in smaller times, but now it's taking longer. It's taking less time for things to change, and therefore you need to start approaching that change as an ongoing process. And so that really gets you on to thinking about all the methodologies and how you address anything and everything, from how you hire people, how do you keep people employed, how they interact with each other, how we interact with customers, how we interact with partners and vendors, and how we interact with our government and regulations. All of that is just an ongoing process that we need to change. And so you start seeing things like application of agile methodologies that we used to think that was just for software development. And all of a sudden we're applying agile methodologies to project management, agile strategic planning, or agile budgeting, right? Those are the things that we never imagined, right? Budgeting is a thing we do once a year. All of a sudden organizations are saying, well, budgeting is something we do continuously. And so as we change how we approach the world and how we approach what we do, what we call digital transformation is really just getting us onto that cadence of making changes ongoing and applying things like agile. And in some places you think, there's some people who say agile is dead because it's not moving fast enough. Right. So we got to figure out other ways to continuously change. And it's just going to continue to happen.
Someone even talks about Agile 2.0, no, in this direction. And this is something very interesting, actually, because most of the academy guys that join Lasting Dynamics Academy struggle to understand what is the concept of MVP, and I usually say MVP is a mindset, actually, and it can be applied, at any kind of, it's not only a way of prototyping, a product, but it can be applied even to understand how you want to reach the moon, or how you want to, graduate in a specific faculty. So it's a way of behaving. And I'm going to make a question that is actually very weird. But so you're saying that basically digital transformation is agile, needs to be agile in some way, or am I understanding it wrongly?
No, you're right. Yep. Absolutely.
So having an agile mindset helps, making steps towards digital transformation, opening your world to embrace the future and this particular process. That's really interesting. And okay, and let's come to the fintech and banking world. So. Yeah. Would like to understand in which relationships these two industries are at the moment nowadays, and how does digital transformation impact these fields at the moment or will impact in the future?
Yeah, well, obviously, fintech is all about bringing digital transformation to banking, right, or financial services, not just banking. And so there are a lot of organizations that said, the legacy banks, wealth management firms, insurance companies, et cetera, cannot innovate quickly enough. And we have figured out a problem that we need to address, and we're going to build a company around that. And so there's a lot of these fintechs who are solving a specific problem. And they, some of them have been very successful. And then you see organizations like SoFi, for example, who looked at the student loan process and said, we want to do this better. Suddenly they've said, okay, we figured that out. Now we need to expand, and we need to, we want to be a bank, and we want to be doing more than just student loans. So we're seeing that what the fintechs at some point have started to get to the point where they already have solved the problem that they set out to do, and then they start building solving other problems, and suddenly they're becoming very much like the legacy organizations that they were going after. In a similar case, you see a lot of legacy organizations that said, okay, we are seeing these fintechs who are coming in and solving a problem, we can copy them. And through that process have said, hey, we figure out how they solve that problem. Now we're going to solve this problem. And suddenly you see some banks and other financial services companies actually starting to do what the fintechs were doing and solving other problems. And so you see that in parallel, that some organizations have done a really great job of changing their business models and starting to match what the fintechs are doing. And in the meantime, the bulk of the organizations in financial services have been caught in the middle. They can't innovate like a fintech because they don't have that mindset, and they cannot invest into the changes that are that need to be made because they're too small, or because of their philosophy or their management or their leadership, whatever reason, and have not kept up. And so what I see, particularly here in the US and specifically in the banking world, you see that the big banks that have been able to put a lot of investments into technology have started to build a really big gap in how they address the market versus a lot of the rest of the industry. And there's some small banks who are also with them, but a lot of the leaders in the digital world in banking are the big banks, and as smattering smaller organizations, and everybody else is trying to catch up and not being able to do it because they don't have the mindset. Similarly, you see the fintechs who were focused on a specific problem are now starting to aggregating and becoming banks, and so now they're being part of that group that's leading the industry. It's interesting to see how quickly that gap is broadening, and it's going to continue. And when I talk to smaller organizations who haven't made the change, they say it's okay because we're going to be fast followers. But you can't be a fast follower in this world because if your strategy is to be a fast follower, it's a guarantee you're going to be a laggard, because you are not going to be able to answer the changes, because by the time you start making a change, the other organizations, whether it's a big bank or a stealthy, quick bank that is investing a lot into change, or a fintech, is already 3 years out, and they're always going to be 3 years out, and that gap keeps getting bigger and bigger. An interesting dynamic, but what it's going to mean is going to be a continued growth in mergers and acquisitions, because some organizations are just going to give up and say, we can't keep up. We're just going to stay here until we continue to be going after our cash cow kind of clients, and then someone's going to buy us. And in the fintech world, you also see that. You see a lot of M&A in the fintech world because of a similar of aggregating and improving and actually getting revenue and income, and some fintechs that are not able to scale up and being able to actually keep up. So I expect M&A for the next 10 years is going to be significant throughout both the fintech and the legacy banking world.
Okay. Now let's put our hands into this other topic that so we are on the edge of some interesting technology rise, and we are talking about AI and quantum computing. And I would like to understand, in your opinion, what we should expect from the upcoming future.
Yeah. I love quantum computing. It's a really interesting space, but it's too early to say, quantum computing is going to change banking, blah, 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 right? I mean, the most interesting part from a financial services standpoint for quantum computing is cybersecurity, right? The application of encryption to a point that, gives you, forget about zero trust, right? It's beyond that, right? So that would be amazing, but we are not there yet. So the fastest supercomputers can do a better job than a quantum computer today for the current needs of a financial services organization. So quantum computing is something to keep an eye on, but it's not something that a lot of CTOs and CIOs need to be spending any investments into it at this point. It's really just keep an eye on what's going on. AI obviously is something that is impacting the industry and industries in general. It's something that organizations need to invest into. And while that is not new technology, AI is getting better and better every day. So continuing to look at that. I do worry about biases within AI, particularly when it comes to things like underwriting or anything like that, where we're relying on a black box to make decisions, and that black box has been trained on data that is inappropriate or inadequate. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But certainly applying AI to lots of the decision making that we routinely do in banking, particularly around fraud, is a big one. To me, we have been going around for a decade now trying to put blockchain into all kinds of things without a real solution. So it's a great technology looking for a problem as opposed to the other way around. And I've seen organizations actually say, okay, we have this problem, we're going to put blockchain into it, but at the end of the day, you sort of miss the whole point of it. So, blockchain is a decentralized technology, and a lot of banks are in a centralized world, and therefore trying to put something that is decentralized doesn't make a lot of sense and within the framework of a current bank. It's to me some of the real basic technologies that we have talked about for a long time are just coming into the forefront into financial services. So real basic AI, machine learning is something that we should be looking into. Even simple technologies and approaches such as better UI and better UX and human-centered design, which is something that in other industries it's a given, is something that's fairly new to financial services, despite what a lot of organizations will tell you. Some of that stuff is still bleeding edge in financial services, and I do see some organizations saying, or some industries saying, financial services is leading in technology. I kind of chuckle because, being within financial services, I see retail, entertainment, gaming way ahead of financial services, and we're, years behind some of those industries.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Digital Transformation Podcast. We hope you found it valuable. Do act on the information and take relevant business decisions to grow. We will see you in the next episode.